Critical exposition is the simplest form a philosophy essay can take. In it, you focus on a single argument from a single text, you raise objections to that argument, and you reply to those objections. A successful critical exposition will reconstruct the author's text as faithfully and as charitably as possible, given the space available, and then it will show how the argument stands up or perhaps collapses under the pressure of some objections. This video just clarifies the basic structure of a critical exposition. So let's start with the introduction. In an introduction to a critical exposition, it's important to indicate the very limited scope of your ambition. For example, you might write, "In this essay, my aims are narrow. I only wish to test the soundness of Plato's best argument in the Phaedo for the soul's immortality." The second section of a critical exposition is the reconstruction of the target argument. Now, you already know how to do this because you've watched my tutorial on reconstructing arguments. If you haven't, then you need to go to that playlist and watch it so you know what to do in this section of the paper. The third section of a critical exposition is the Objections and Answers section. So here you raise objections to the argument that you've reconstructed and you try to answer them. Now, how you use the objections will depend on your overall argumentative strategy. For instance, if you're trying to show that the argument fails, then you'll raise an objection and show that the author can't answer it. So you'll show how the author would try to answer it, but ultimately you're going to say that that answer fails. If you're trying to do something constructive with the original text, then you'll raise an objection and then show how one might answer it. Whatever your overall strategy, try to raise the strongest objections that you can think of and avoid raising weak objections. There's no point in doing that. The point of this work is to pick an argument that has some real strength to it and then try to stress test it. And you're not going to stress test it by raising simple, weak objections that you can easily knock down with very little effort. Finally, in this section, you typically don't raise all the objections at once. People usually do it in a kind of serial way where they raise an objection, then they answer it, they raise another objection, and then they answer it. And they essentially do that until they use up the space available to them. Speaking of space, in this type of paper, usually your introduction is short, it's about half a page. Your argument reconstruction is about a third of the paper, and then the rest of the paper consists of this argument and objection section. And then finally there's a conclusion. In another video, I'm going to talk about the different components of a philosophical essay, so I'll say something about introductions and conclusions and so on. But this is all you need to know about the basic structure of a critical comparison.